Right? Hiccup.
Yeah, just a small hiccup. Yeah, because in that small little interval, I've decided I needed some watermelon. Here we go.
Oh, I love watermelon.
Even though it's now my story and I'm not really going to be able to eat it.
You always make these choices, don't you?
Always. Oh, it's a good idea. I'm gonna have some watermelon.
Well, why not? Well, while you're doing that, random blams, go. I'll do mine so you can eat your watermelon. Although this could add to it, because my random blam today is going to be another tongue twister. And it's a nice easy one for all our listeners to practice. A noisy noise annoys an oyster. A noisy noise annoys an oyster.
And what?
And a what? A noisy noise annoys an oyster.
A noisy noise annoys an oyster.
A noisy noise annoys an oyster.
That's quite pleasant
it.
to say in my mouth.
Yeah, because it's the noise, isn't it? Noise.
Yeah.
A noisy noise annoys an oyster. Oh, hey, Susie. Susie's like, whatever. Can I have some watermelon?
Absolutely
there you go.
not.
A noisy noise annoys an oyster.
Right, here's my random blam. For everybody that knows me knows that I'm a massive Harry Potter fan.
Uh-huh.
I don't even care. I love it. Like to this day, love it.
Yeah, never stop.
Never stop. A hardcore Harry Potter fan.
You are.
Yeah, and I've just started reading a series of books that are quite similar to Harry Potter. And I love them too. Love them.
What are they?
They're called Keeper of the Lost Cities. This is the second one that I'm almost finished, and I've ordered the third one because God forbid I'm without a book for a little while.
Yeah.
Can't
be running out.
But yes, so my random fact is that Daniel Radcliffe, who plays Harry Potter, was allergic to his Harry Potter glasses.
Oh no.
So when he was little and they first had these glasses, they didn't know that he had an allergy to nickel. So these glasses that he wore, he also had an allergy to the contact lenses.
Oh no.
Yeah. Get out of the way. Yeah, so in one scene when he's with Hagrid at the very end, and he's saying goodbye to Hagrid as he goes on the train.
Well, when he goes about going home and he goes, not really.
Yeah. And so his eyes are like red and bloodshot, like he's been crying, but it's actually because he had an allergic reaction to the contact lenses.
His eyeballs are burning out of his head.
That's exactly it. And he was only little, bless him. What a professional.
Oh no, he was tiny, wasn't he?
So
I used to get, when I used to wear glasses before I got my eyes lasered, I used to get an allergy to the pads. Like that, and the
little rubber bits.
Yeah, they used to really burn all here and that. So, yeah, hideous.
All right, well, it's not about you. It's about Harry Potter.
Apparently, it's always about me. Thank you.
Right, random blams done.
Done. I think I was a parrot in a previous life, you know.
Right, because why do you think that?
Because all my life, ever since I was like tiny, I would hear a noise and I would mimic it. Maybe I was like a minor bird or something. I'd hear a noise. It could be any noise, like a loud car driving past, or a like car horn in the distance, or someone shouting or something like that. And I just feel the need to like mimic it. And I've always done that. And I thought about it the other day and I thought, there's no one here. Like I was in the car on my own and like a lorry went past and obviously like bibbed someone else and sort of went boop, boop, like that. And I was just driving along on the M25 and I was just like, boop, boop. Why do I need to do that? Why do I need to mimic all these noises? But I do it like subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm going to be really good at sound effects. I always feel like I'm going to be really good at everything. So I always give stuff a try. And Hayley was like saying something about the Chewbacca noise.
Mm.
So I immediately tried to do the Chewbacca noise.
Tried. Tried and failed.
Tried and failed. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. The noise in my head was the Chewbacca noise. The noise that come out, don't know what that was.
Someone choking.
Absolutely. It's such a hard noise to do.
Yeah.
I'd be so impressed if anyone could do that.
I can do
Is
it,
it?
but I'm not going to do it in front of the whole world.
No?
No.
We do have the whole world listening.
Obviously.
That was so delicate that it barely reached my ears.
Well, I am a very delicate person, I'll have you know.
It was so soulful.
Soulful.
Morning.
It's nice that, like, we know that not everyone, obviously, but
the whole world.
The whole world looks forward to our dulcet tones of morning.
I never ever thought that my very Essex accent would be classed as anything other, like, just not dulcet. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it should not be defined as dulcet.
No, I don't think that our Essex tones are pleasurable to anyone.
No.
I think people put up with it to maybe hear the stories. I don't know.
I have been listening to these like survival stories, and I love listening to survival stories because I think that humans are just like so impressive.
Crazy. I mean, human beings are crazy motherfuckers.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And all these Americans and Australians and stuff, and they tell their story, and you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, you get right into it. And then the next story that come on was a British man. Yeah. And his voice was just not pleasant to listen to, and it made me not want to listen to the story because his voice is so boring.
I know. I know. I get it. I feel exactly the same. I listened to the whole of like every episode of one podcast, and I was like, oh man, I love that podcast, and it's done by an American guy, and I was like, well, I fucking love that. And then when I ran out, I was like, oh, they've also got a different pod. So I thought, wicked, I'll give that a listen. And it's done by a British guy. And I was like, oh. And I listened to, I think, like half of one episode, and I thought, I just can't get into. Sorry. You can't.
No, the Americans and Australians have got such a way of engaging and embellishing stories, and they're so vivid and descriptive and captivating. But when I listened to this British guy, he was like, oh well, I was in a plane.
Whoa, what-o?
Oh, what-o? The plane fell down and I burned.
And I thought, oh bugger.
How am I going to get out of this sticky situation?
I know, and it's just like nah.
So
I know. But I guess, I don't know, maybe most of our listeners are in America, so maybe they hear our what-o, Sarah? What-o, old bean? And they think, gee, that's
I love that. Love that for them.
Yeah, I love that. But for us, nah.
No, so that's the reason I think that we've just in this episode in particular, we've decided to enlist the help of other voices to read the episode for us, because hopefully you will enjoy
it's just
it.
Something different, isn't it?
It's something a little bit different. If you don't love it, then tell us. But if you love it, then we'll do more.
We've got a new member of the team. We've got our Perplexed AI actor that can recreate any voice.
He's multilinguistic.
Oh, he is. Do you know, I was chatting.
Them.
Yes, that's true. I was chatting with them yesterday, as you do. I was like, sup, and he was like, sup. And I was listening to like, you know, all these different accents and everything like that. And then I thought, I wonder what he's like at a Welsh accent. Put it on. Do you know, he actually spoke in Welsh. Not just a Welsh accent, English with a Welsh accent. He actually spoke in Welsh. And I was like, oh,
that's a
impressive.
crazy hard language.
Yeah, really hard. But he was like, yeah, he was killing it. So I was like, oh, well done, Al.
Great job, AI guy.
I think his name's Al, as in Alan. Al.
Alan.
Al. Yeah. All right. Welcome to the team, Alan, who recreated our I was going to say Willie Picton then.
No.
I've blanked it out. I can't think about that episode. It's so affected me. I could barely listen to it to edit it. So I was expecting you to come back and go, oh, you've made some big fluff ups with the editing. Because I've
not listened to it, Kate.
Oh, well,
I've done it once.
You guys, again. No, exactly. That's exactly how I felt. And I was like, oh, I can't do it. So yeah, there could be lots of hideous mistakes in the editing, but I am sorry for you guys, but I'm also not sorry for me because I can't listen to every word of that all over again. So yeah, no. sorry about that. But
with this episode, so I'd been planning another episode after the release of yours. And I'd said to Josie, I need to do a bit of an uplifting episode. I don't like doing a heavy one after the other. No. So I wanted to do something different. So I was like looking for a story that I could do. And then I said to Josie, oh, I found one. She was like, oh, great. What is it? And I told her what it was. She was like, that's not uplifting.
That is not in the least uplifting.
I started doing it, but it's incredibly long and it's incredibly in depth. So that is on the back burner. That I'll carry on with that. But for now, we have got a Campfire scary stories for you, and perfect. This is perfect for everybody. This is a collection of stories as read by our AI character. And we hope you enjoy them. So this first story is by Reddit user Scary Salad Medley.
My mom was a single mother of 3 in the early 2000s and eventually started going on dates when I was about 6. I remember the first time I met him. He made me feel uncomfortable, but my mom shrugged it off because I was a shy kid. She had done her due diligence and Googled his name, coming across a court case. It listed him as a convicted felon of murder from back in the early 80s. I don't know how, but he convinced her that it was a mistake. I guess because he had a very generic name, she believed him. We were raised by him, called him Dad, even at one point asking him to adopt us. The adoption never happened, thank God. He was a good dad to us, at first. Things started to get weird when I turned 12. Suddenly I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers, wasn't allowed to choose my own haircuts, wasn't allowed to watch TV. It escalated to padlocks on the fridge and pantry, having to ask permission to drink water, and never being allowed in the kitchen past 8 p.m. He was a master manipulator, so at the time we all thought it sucked but was normal punishment despite us not having done anything to deserve it. I lost my door for weeks on end for stupid stuff like forgetting to do the dishes after dinner. Once when I was 16 I wanted to not go to my brother's soccer games so I could study, and he went into a blinding rage. I think that was the first time I ever was truly afraid of him. He was a large man, probably 4 times my weight at the time. I think that was the first time his mask fully slipped in front of me. He started being weird and creepy towards me once I turned 18. One night as I was sleeping he came into my room and laid in my bed, saying he loved me. I was so tired I didn't even have time to think of how creepy it was until much later. I pushed him out of my room and went back to bed. The next day while me and my family were gone, he'd stayed behind. He trashed my sister's room for no reason. She was only about 11 at the time and was very upset. He gave her the middle finger and my mom finally lost it. telling him to pack up his stuff. He brandished a gun, waving it in my face before taking off in his car. We called the cops, and after nearly getting shot, he was arrested. We found out he was a murderer when his bond was set at $250,000. He tried to lie to my mom again, but it didn't work this time. I looked up the case, and it was way worse than just a murder. He'd beaten someone to death with a metal pipe late at night in a highly populated park. I did not know this man, not truly. Neither had my mom, not really. He got out on bond and tried to come back to the house. I was the only one home, and I had no idea my siblings had not locked the door when they left for the day. I was cooking pasta before heading to work when I heard the front door open. I peered my head to the front door, and my blood ran cold as I saw him standing there. He said something to me, but I don't remember what it was. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door, not even bothering to turn off the stove. I pressed up against the bathroom door and called my mom as he banged on the door, asking me why I didn't love him. I was so afraid I nearly sent myself into an asthma attack. My mom had a family friend come by and pick me up. When they entered the house, he wasn't there anymore. That was the last time I saw him, back in 2017. He'd helped raise me and my siblings for 13 years. He was the closest thing I ever had to a normal dad, which given everything is kind of sad when I think about it too much. I can't help but worry that I'll fall back into the same toxic and manipulative relationship. It's what I knew growing up after all. Maybe that's why I keep people at a distance now. The reason I thought about this recently is because some true crime TikToker actually covered the story on the man he murdered all those years ago, and I stumbled across it. One of his daughters even commented on the post, giving more details about what it was like growing up with him. It was odd, thinking that so many of my peers could have put two and two together if they had seen the TikTok. I know I'm a victim in all of this, but I couldn't help but feel shame that I was connected to this man and his atrocities. I could end this with the typical "so let's never meet again," but I know we won't, because he died. I didn't go to the funeral. Almost nobody did. From what my mom told me, not even his parents went. The last thing I want to say is please don't give my mom any hate. She was manipulated into believing he was a good man, and we've made peace with her on this particular subject. A lot of the things I mentioned happening in my childhood were things she didn't know about until he was already dead.
Well, that was a crazy story.
Mad.
I'll tell you why that scares me.
Terrifying as well.
Yeah, because people can camouflage themselves into whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like this man, even though he was a convicted felon, and when the mum Googled him, his name came up, he was a convicted felon, he went, "No, I'm not. No, I'm absolutely, look at me, I'm not a convicted felon." And he lived that way for 13 years.
Yeah.
Until this violence then came out of him. And that's what terrifies me, is that can you ever really know a person?
I know. It's terrifying, even with the toy box killer.
Oh yeah, and everyone, oh, he's such a nice guy.
Such a nice guy.
Such a nice guy.
So kind and all that. Yet he couldn't have been more brutal.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this guy. You know, it's like it's scary when you have like step parents.
Yeah.
And things like that are initiated into a family, because you don't know how they're going to be like with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be a complete monster and you would have no idea. Like
Absolutely.
This guy.
Absolutely. Like
terrifying.
I think it's just so scary that people walk among us that just blend in.
Yeah.
That could be, you could speak to someone in the shop and be like, "Oh, hi, thank you for the trolley, thank you for that." Blah, blah, blah. They could go home and beat their family members, or and it just really terrifies me that
they could be in there buying stuff for a kill kit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They could be in there buying like bleach and bin bags and things like that in amongst all their shopping, and they're just like, do you want to go in front of me? And you're like, oh, brilliant, thanks.
Oh gosh, and then you go home and go, God, there was a really nice man at the supermarket today, let me go in front of him. And then he's gone, like, he
could have already killed, like, he could have already killed someone and just be on his way back to, like, clear up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, really, really scary.
Yeah.
So this next story is by Reddit user Acid Rain FA11.
Oh,
when I was young,
like Acid Rainfall, that would be, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah,
Acid Rainfall.
Oh, good one. Acid Rain FA11. I didn't even clock it.
Yeah.
Acid Rainfall.
When I was younger and just got into online college, I got my first apartment. I had 3 jobs and one was third shift, but I was more than ready for independence. While I had a great time there, I did have one problem: my new downstairs neighbor. So the other tenants are a bit older than I am, with one of them being an old man who lived there for 20 years, the other was an older woman with a small kid, probably been here for 3 or 4 years. And an empty apartment downstairs. I keep to myself, so I never really spoke to any of them before until I noticed that there was a new move-in, a man that seemed close to my age, maybe a little older, black greasy hair and a little overweight, but in my experience living here people seemed nice and I was happy to possibly have someone to say hello to. That possibility turned sour really quick when a casual hello turned into "that trash stinks" remarks from him when I was taking out the trash, and snide remarks under his breath when I've done nothing. Even remarking on my sister's lack of a bra when she came to visit me. Naturally, I was grossed out and annoyed that he had to comment on anyone, especially my sister. And told the landlord, but nothing came of it, of course. One day I was asleep and someone came banging on my door. I had no idea who it was and my anxiety was beyond strong. I'm alone and never expect a knock that wasn't planned. It was the neighbor saying that I was being too loud and I need to stop harassing him. I explained through a closed door that I was asleep and that I was not making noise. He left and stomped down the stairs while muttering and calling me a bitch. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. I went back to bed, only to hear him coming back up the stairs and bang on my door. When I addressed him again, he said that I was harassing him and that he's calling the cops because I'm still making noise. I told him to ask the other neighbor because there's no way that I could possibly be making noise when he is on the other side of the building. He thanks me politely before stomping off and cursing and calling me a bitch yet again. I tell the landlord right away that one of his tenants is acting hostile and I don't feel comfortable or safe, and he tells me he will look into it. I hear nothing for a week. It turned out it was the old neighbor hitting the floor with a stick like one of those classic cartoons because the rude neighbor was playing music too loud. I swear he should have known that, as I'm on the other side. It was like he wanted an excuse to come speak to me. The following months it got worse. One day I walked out in a snowsuit so that I can play in the snow. He had to remark on my clothing being unnecessary, even when there's 3 feet of snow out. I forgot what I said in response, something like it's not his business, but he basically just said fuck you. I just walked off to go play in the snow. It gave me little enjoyment because of the earlier interaction, so I went back home to get ready for work. The snowstorm got worse and I had just came back from my night shift. I see him alone in the parking lot with the car on and the windows up. I was on high alert as I carefully walked around and up the alley to my apartment. The second I closed the door to go upstairs, I hear loud, wall-shaking music. It's him. He's blasting his car music at max volume. In a snowstorm at 3 a.m. I was surprised and confused because what was his reasoning? He did it until 8 o'clock in the morning, and I found out later it was to spite the old neighbor for telling him his music is too loud. Soon it all started getting serious, cursing in the hallway and playing music louder. With the police knocking at our doors asking us about a noise disturbance, and now a mutual hatred amongst the neighbors at the asshole who kept us all up. But that's not the worst part. I just got back from my night shift and it's 3 a.m. yet again. I'm dragging my tired feet over to the mailboxes that are right inside the townhouse door. As I'm looking through the ads and letters, his door opens at the top of the stairs. My stomach tightens, hoping I don't have to interact with him, but drops when he starts speaking unintelligibly. At the top of the stairs, he's gurgling and mumbling something. "What?" I said, but he repeats the same weird sounds again, only more aggressive. I felt something was more than off, and noped right around and out the door, heading back to my car. I thought, I'd rather sleep in my car than possibly be attacked in the hallway, and as I'm having the thought, I hear the window above slam open. I freeze and then spin back around the edge of the corner. It's him, and he's looking for me out the window. I stand there for a moment listening to him, and he's speaking gibberish and yelling. I thought to myself that it was my chance to sneak upstairs, past his door, and into my apartment. I sped up the stairs and past his door to the second flight of stairs. Right as I reach the top of second flight of stairs, his door swings open with a big slam that makes me jump, and I hear him muttering and gibberishly speaking loudly while walking up the stairs. My heart is beating out of my rib cage as I am simultaneously walking and fishing my keys out of my bag. Like a classic horror movie, I kept fumbling the keys looking for the correct one in the dark hallway as I hear him walking up the last couple steps. I mentally told myself not to panic as I spot the correct key and slide it into the keyhole on the first go. I swing the door open and practically launch myself inside before slamming it shut behind me. I pause and hold my breath as I hear him just 5 feet from my door, muttering gibberish and calling me a bitch before walking back downstairs and out the building. I watched him through a crack in my window blind, pacing back and forth, muttering, cursing, and at one point screaming before walking off into the night. With a little bit of relief, I head to bed, hoping he doesn't come back. The next day I get a text from the landlord. He says that guy was arrested and won't be coming back. Seems he was off his meds again, and attaches a link in the text. Of course, I raised an eyebrow to that comment, thinking, now you tell me? The following link showed a mugshot and a description of his nightly activity, to include stealing from a Turkey Hill, threatening cops that he'll shoot them, punching one of them. And previous to all this, it said, earlier in the night when he dropped his pants and rubbed himself against a window, then ran around the town square while yelling. Never did see him again, just his family coming in and moving his stuff. So, to the off his meds rude neighbor, let's not meet again.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's not.
Yeah, oh, pulling his pants down and rubbing himself against the window. Right.
I think if you've got a mental health, I mean, so many programs that we watch or podcasts that we listen to say that so-and-so was schizophrenic, that had, was medicated for it, whatever else.
Yeah.
But they stopped taking their medication.
Yeah.
And that's when things go wrong. And I don't know what it is about the medication. Like, why do they stop taking the medication?
I think it doesn't make them feel good.
Mm.
Like, and I think there's possibly, I don't know, like so many side effects from them taking this medication that it makes them feel shit.
Yeah, but it's like, if you're schizophrenic and if you're not on your meds, you're out of control. Surely that's not a nice feeling.
Don't know.
Mental health really scares me because I think for us, when you're able to rationally think and go, why is that? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
To that person's actions, and that person doesn't have that same rational ability to think. That really scares me, because like, you can have an argument with someone, like a rational argument, but the person that's coming back to you might not be rational, and they,
it's then really pointless, isn't it?
Yeah, I find it really difficult to understand people's perspective, like rude people or horrible people, because I don't understand the brain. Like, I someone in the car the other day almost crashed into me, like cut right across the roundabout in front of me. I had to slam on my brakes, so I beeped, and out the window, he stuck up his middle finger. In what universe is that the correct response?
Yeah, I know.
Because
I know you. At least you'd expect him to go.
oh,
Sorry.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, and you'd just be like, no worries.
Yeah,
You know, and on
but
your
for
way.
him to get angry at me because
know.
I happened to be behind him when he cut across and almost took me out.
Yeah,
that scares me because I don't understand how people can
it's bizarre, isn't it?
think that way. Yeah,
It's similar to how I feel about like when we get feedback on like some of the episodes.
yeah,
What I find difficult is we almost never get people that will respond to our episodes and say, oh, just a heads up, her mother was actually present when she was born because blah, blah, blah. And I know this because blah, 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 blah. And we'd be like, oh, brilliant. Thanks for the like info.
correct information. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. But what we tend to get instead is people coming really aggressive. And I mean, it's only happened maybe twice in like all our 87 episodes. It's only happened like twice. But it really baffles me why people come in and go, why are you spreading these lies? You know, these are, and it's like, you know, her mother was present when she was young and blah, 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 and all this. And it's like, why do you
calm
think
the fuck down?
Yeah. Why do you think we're going to respond to like rude and aggressive responses? And secondly, how do we know that your information's right? Because you're just bleating all this stuff in response.
Yeah.
But you haven't actually said, I know this because, you know, I knew the family or I live in that town or, you know, whatever it is. And it's like, why do you think you're going to get a good response from coming that aggressive? And it's like that guy on the roundabout with you.
Yeah.
You could
How
have
is that?
Yeah, you could have made everything fine by just going, oh shit, sorry.
Yeah.
I've
done it before. I've pulled out and someone's beeped and I've gone, oh, sorry. I hold my hands up. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I would not get annoyed at the person behind that they've had to beep me because I've done something wrong. I wouldn't be like, oh, well, you fucking shouldn't have been there.
You shouldn't have been living. There you be there in your car. I know. Yes, it's weird. It's difficult to understand other people. And I think
but like
that
guy who's playing his music incredibly loud, has got so annoyed that they've told him he's playing his music loud that he sat in his car from 3 a.m. until 8 p.m. 8 a.m. playing his music really loud. I don't understand.
No.
But this next episode is by Reddit user Bobby Brown 666420.
Bobby Brown.
When I was 10, my parents and I went to visit my grandmother for spring break. My cousin also came to visit and we decided we wanted to go to the YMCA for the day. My grandmother dropped us off and said she would come and pick us up in 4 hours. On that day, the YMCA was empty. There were a couple of adults in the exercise room, but that's it. We went to the basketball court and after 2 hours of playing tag and shooting baskets, we were bored. I've never been the biggest fan of swimming, but this YMCA had a pretty cool pool, so we changed into our bathing suits and headed in there. The pool was empty, except for the lifeguard. We played a bunch of games and swam laps, but after about an hour, there wasn't much left to do, and there was no one except us to hang out with to keep things interesting. So, we decided to play a game of seeing how long we could hold our breath underwater. We stood in the shallow end near the clock on the wall so we could time ourselves. Instead of fully submerging, we just stuck our heads face down in the water. We did this a couple of times, and I was winning. On our last round, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I figured it was my cousin giving up and telling me that I won. But instead, it was the lifeguard who told me to knock it off or she was going to have to ask us to leave the pool. Since we were tired of being in the pool, we figured we would get out, get dressed, and go back to the basketball court until my grandmother picked us up. We only had an hour left anyways, and the water was freezing. As we got out, the lifeguard stopped us and asked if we wanted to go into the sauna to warm up and dry off. The sign said 18 years or older, so of course, we were super excited that she allowed us to do that. She walked us to the sauna and unlocked the door. The door was glass, and the interior was made entirely out of wood. Inside, above the door, there was a clock, probably to help make sure you were not in there for an unsafe amount of time. The lifeguard stand was adjacent to the sauna, but if you looked out the door, you could clearly see it. She followed us in and went over to the thermometer encased in plastic and unlocked it so she could crank up the heat. I figured that she must have to turn it on each time, so I didn't think anything of it. Both my cousin and I were very short girls, and so we couldn't see the temperature that was printed on the thermometer knob, but I knew. She was turning up the heat. Then she left and shut the door behind her. I thought I saw her lock the door too, but I thought to myself, why would she lock the door when we might want to get out? I checked the clock and decided we should get out in 10 or 15 minutes. It was already plenty warm in the sauna, but now the room was blazing. It felt nice because I was so cold from the pool. After about 15 minutes, it was starting to get a little bit too hot, and my cousin agreed that we should leave so we can get dressed. I went to turn the knob on the door, but it wasn't budging. I thought maybe it was jammed, so I shook it, but it still wasn't opening, and then I let my cousin try. She couldn't get it open either. We figured the lifeguard would be back in a couple of minutes, so we sat back down and waited. The room was getting hotter now too, and I really wanted to leave. I got up and started banging on the door, shaking and twisting the knob, trying to get the lifeguard's attention. My cousin got up and joined me. We started screaming at the top of our lungs for her to let us out, but she just stared straight ahead. I don't think there's any way that she couldn't have noticed or heard two little girls banging and kicking the door and screaming. Now we had been in there for about 25 minutes. It was so hot in the sauna that it hurt to breathe. It felt like my lungs were on fire. My eyes and skin were burning. We sat back down and put our towels over our heads because they were still a little damp, and it made it easier to breathe. I was so worried about my cousin as she is a couple of years younger than me. I looked at the clock and saw that we had been there for 35 minutes. I got up and walked to the door again and saw the lifeguard still just staring straight ahead. Again, I tried to get her attention by screaming that we needed out and banging on the door as hard as I could. But still nothing. I was starting to get pretty dizzy, so I went to go sit back down, but the wooden seats of the sauna burned my skin. My towel was completely dry, so I put it underneath me to sit on. My hair was also dry, but I wrapped it across my face to cover my nose, and I squinted my eyes so that they didn't burn as bad. But I could still watch if anyone walked past the door. It helped a little bit. My cousin was laying face down with the towel over her head, not moving or saying anything, so I nudged her to make sure that she was still okay. She was, but I could tell that we really needed to get out of there soon because she seemed a bit disoriented. It had been 45 minutes now, and I was extremely nauseous. There was no way that the lifeguard would forget that we were in there, and I thought she would have to come back soon, but there was this little voice in my head, telling me that maybe she purposely locked us in there. Finally, a man walked past the door towards the pool, but for some reason, I just couldn't get up. My whole body was on fire, and I felt so dizzy. Luckily, this man wasn't going to the pool. He wanted to be let into the sauna and came back with a lifeguard. I saw them walking this way and immediately jumped up to grab my cousin. I knew now that for sure she had locked us in there because she pulled out her keys to unlock the door and let the man in. I didn't want to take any chances of us being trapped in there any longer, so as the man was trying to walk in, I was trying to shove our way out. As we were going out, the lifeguard started trying to shut the door and push us back with it. The man was clearly confused about what was going on and said, "I think they want out." The lifeguard let out a sigh and opened the door fully, and we ran away as fast as we could into the changing room. We only had about 10 minutes before a grandmother was supposed to pick us up. We were both so shaken by what just happened that we didn't say anything to each other as we got dressed or on the car ride home. When we got back to the house, my parents were making us dinner, and I told them the story of what just happened. They thought that I must have been exaggerating, and they didn't believe me. I truly think that that woman was going to let us cook alive in there. The only bit of doubt that I have is what would have happened if we actually died. She obviously would have gotten the blame. What was her endgame? I'm 21 now, but I think about this interaction all the time, and when I'm in small spaces or I get too warm, I still have panic attacks. No one believes this story, and I get it, it's pretty absurd. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask for opinions, but do you think that this could have been some crazy misunderstanding, or do you think That she really just left us in there to die? And why?
Jeez. That's crazy.
I mean, as a lifeguard, you don't lock the sauna door. That was done on purpose. She's locked that sauna door, and
Yeah, I mean, she let them in there.
Yeah.
Went in, fiddled with the
heat up.
thermostat.
Yeah.
And then locked him. You'd never lock someone in anywhere, let alone a sauna.
Final destination. Yeah.
For sure.
When they get stuck in the bloody tanning thing.
Yeah, I mean, what would she have done if they'd died in there?
But I think that's it, isn't it? People don't think through their actions.
Yeah, I mean, what was that? Some sort of like retribution for them holding their breath under the water?
Yeah, playing about in the pool.
And she suggested it as well.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one that was like, do you want to get in the sauna and like warm up and dry off?
Mm-hmm.
What a bitch.
What a knob.
What a knob.
Right. This is the last story, and it is by Reddit user idiot_s/witch.
Idiot switch.
Yeah.
Nice.
So when I was 14, I decided to take ballroom dance classes. That was kind of normal for teenagers in my generation in my country. There you had to change partners each song, so every girl would dance with every boy. In my group that consisted of mostly teens between 14 to 17, there was a really tall, almost 2-meter, 21-year-old guy. Philip. We had a nice chat the times we danced, but he seemed weird. And because I was young and naive, and that's how I normally made friends, I told him where I lived when he asked me. So the stalking began. At that time I did not realize that it was stalking. I just thought he had much time and that it was annoying. Philip would ride on his bike from his home, he lived one town over, to my house and ask if I wanted to spend time outside with him and play. After doing that for a few times, I asked my parents to tell him that I was not home when he would come over. Both my parents and I were very oblivious about his actions for a very, very long time. At one point in time the stalking ended for a few weeks and Philip also did not come to dance classes. At that time I became part of a friend group of a boy I fancied. For some months he had a girlfriend, but they split soon after and I became his girlfriend. Unfortunately Philip was also friends with the best friend of my boyfriend, so he was also part of the group. They told me Philip was in a mental hospital. In the span of his stalking Philip was in mental hospitals multiple times, and every time I was glad because then I had some peace. When I was 16 my family and I had to move because our landlady had thrown us out. She wanted to live in the property herself, so we moved one town over. We started living 2 streets apart from my stalker. And every time Philip was out of the hospital he would be at my house. At my father's birthday he rang again, and because my family had guests they told me to open the door, and there he was, looming over me, like a dark menacing shadow man. I told him to leave and I tried to close the door, but he blocked it. So I was standing there, afraid, begging him to leave. At one time I even ran inside to get my dad to send him away, but my dad said, "He is your friend, so it's your problem." So I went back to the door and I begged and pleaded that Philip please leave. At one point he was kneeling, sitting in my doorway. After almost 2 hours he finally left. And at that point it was obvious for me, finally I had realized what type of behavior it was. He was a stalker and he was fixated on me. The next day I sat down my parents and told them that I was afraid of Philip, and my dad also apologized to me for putting me in that situation and not helping me. The next time Philip came to my house, my dad was there and told him that I do not want any contact with him. So he left. After a few more incidents like that he stopped showing up at my door and I thought we got rid of my stalker. But every time I started to live happily. Starting to forget my fear of him, a letter, an email or a gift showed up and would send me back into my fears. At 20 I was out of school, and to pass the year, I worked in a grade school in a voluntary after-school care club for grade schoolers. After a month or two, my mom woke me up in the morning and told me to get dressed because she had called the cops. Apparently Philip was again every morning at our door and asked for me, and my parents didn't tell me so I wouldn't get scared again. Finally, after the cops told Philip 3 times to leave and he ignored them, they arrested him, and he screamed and screamed my name and that he was burning for me and that the cops hurt him. My parents and I were standing in the kitchen listening. The situation was so absurd and so much for me that I started laughing hysterically. We filed a report at the police for stalking and trespassing, but the officer said that they could not do anything because he hadn't hurt me physically. We tried to get a restraining order but it didn't go through. A week later Philip had sneaked into our garden and like in a movie he threw rocks at my window. Throwing rocks at a girl's window is not romantic. It's creepy. Idiot me opened the window but did not see anything until it clicked and I ran downstairs and told my dad that my stalker was in the garden. Philip escaped. A week after that, I was in the kitchen cooking when Philip rang the doorbell again and because we have no way of seeing who is at the door I opened. And there he was again telling me that he missed me and saying that he had peeked through the blinds of the windows in the living room the past week to see if I was there. My parents were not home. If they had been I would have ran, but like this, I had to swallow my fear and stand in the doorway listening to Philip talk until my boyfriend came. I had sent him an SOS SMS and he was on his way. After my boyfriend arrived, he told Philip to leave and he did. Philip mentioned in passing that he now also has a girlfriend. After that I did not see Philip again for a long time. A friend told me that he was taken by the men in white coats because he had believed that his mom was possessed by the devil. I was glad. It wasn't until 2 years later when I got a letter from court. I was a witness and told to attend in the case of assault of Philip. Apparently after coming out of the mental hospital he had a big fight with his girlfriend and hit her, and because she was scared she played dead. Philip called an ambulance and the police finally had something against him. After the hearing he was admitted again to a mental hospital and I finally got a restraining order and he was ordered to stay at least 30 meters away from our property. I was so glad. The restraining order also implied that if he broke any of the requirements he would go to jail.
Blimey.
Stalkers.
Yeah.
There isn't enough law
Do you know
to
what?
protect people
100%.
against stalkers.
That is exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's
People
not
just
enough.
aren't protected enough.
No, stalking isn't seen as a serious crime until it's a serious crime.
Yeah, I know. And then it's like, okay, so now someone's been killed and they're like, okay, now we'll arrest them.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely. Well, he wasn't doing any harm. He's just stalking. He's not doing anything
yeah.
until he does something.
They always step it up, these stalkers. They
Mhm.
always step it up. It's never it never just stays watching at a distance, or it
No.
leads to like casually bumping into them and going, oh, fancy seeing you here, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
god, they're at the shops again, oh my god, they're at the school run again, oh my god, they're
At my house.
they're in my bedroom again.
Yeah. And that's because stalking, if you actually delve into what stalking is an obsession.
Yeah.
But so if you then compare that to serial killers, they have an obsession.
I
And
don't
it's
think
something
obsessions are ever good, are they?
An obsession doesn't stay baseline, does it?
No.
You get more and more obsessed because
you need more.
you need more, because once you've fulfilled that little bit, oh, I see them every day at the shop, but that's not enough. I want to see them more than that. I'm going to go and look through their windows. Like that obsession gets filled and then it fuels more. So I just don't understand why stalking isn't more
Taken more seriously.
Yeah, more harshly punished. That baffles me.
No, it's I had a stalker when I was younger.
Did you?
Yeah. And it got to the point where they text me and said, I liked what you had on first.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-huh.
What
And
did
I
you
was like,
do?
shut my curtains.
Yeah. Changed my number.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was our scary stories for today.
Lolly. And I don't even have a campfire. Oh, that
All
was
right.
wicked.
Well, I
Yeah,
hope you enjoyed that.
I did.
Good.
Thanks.
It's all right.
Capital F.
So,
F.
all right. Well, we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Maybe you spell. Oh,
Maybe.
You can't say that. We can't. No,
You're
retract
stepping
that.
up as the queen of inappropriate now.
I mustn't say that.
Maybe you're a bit.
That
mate.
again, right?
I'm leaving that in. I'm taking us both down.